Today's showcase, we will share the final pictures from our Cohort 7 teams. These teams have simultaneously completed 90 days of academic study, along with hands-on applications you will see here today. Members of these teams have become colleagues and friends in a vibrant, collaborative community that is growing exponentially. It is their hope that many of these projects will make a lasting impression. And more importantly, it is our hope that we will have the chance to work on many more innovation projects in the future.
We are honored today to have with us 3 esteemed guest judges that will evaluate today's presentations and ultimately select our award winners. Rob Olson, a professor of practice at Duke University and Northwestern University, and former innovation officer for Procter & Gamble and holder of 47 patents. Rob is also a senior coach for Aim High, the Project Mercury program for the Air National Guard, and friend of Project Mercury. Welcome.
Good to be here. This is going to be a fantastic day. Thank you.
Colonel Jason Toga True, PhD, Commandant at School of Advanced Air and Space Studies, Project Mercury Cohort 1 graduate, Project Mercury Cohort 2 coach, LEGO Series Play Facilitator, and Stanford D School graduate.
Thanks. I'm excited to hear what everyone came up with today.
Major Aliyah Nadeem, Presidential Fellow, National Security Council, and key member of Women's Initiative Team who is responsible for an array of recent innovations adopted by the United States Air Force.
All right, we're keeping our fingers crossed for Major Nadeem. I think she's a little bit busy there in the Executive Office of the President. So hoping that she'll join us. If not, we also have with us Dr. Jeff DeGraff.
Thank you, judges, for being with us here today. I'd also like to recognize our head coach for Cohort 7, Dr. Ethan Eagle. The Innovatrium turned up the Rolodex on overdrive and brought in several ringers to help these teams develop their pitches. Jason Newcomer, Brandy Jeffries, Joe Byram, Aaron Freed, and Julie Pistol Jansen. These members provided invaluable input and feedback to our teams as they developed these pitches. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce our host, the commander of the Home Center at Air University, Brigadier General Houston Cantwell.
Got me all right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Fantastic. Hey, on behalf of Lieutenant General Tullis, Air University Commander, I want to say thanks to everyone for joining us today. Dr. DeGraff, thank you so much. To my fellow judges, Toga and Rob, hey, we've certainly got our work cut out for us. Cohort 7 has certainly been busy, and we got 5 teams that we got to look carefully at. And I want to say congratulations to everyone for putting in such hard work. And I really do look forward to seeing what you guys have come up with and your real creative thought. We all know that the Chief of Staff, General Brown, has been very clear about we got to accelerate change or lose. And our greatest strength is certainly our people and our values, and certainly humans over hardware. And I think in the U.S. Air Force, sometimes we forget that. But today we're going to focus on exactly that. We're going to focus on creative ideas, and you guys at Project Mercury have really done a fantastic job of creating that space that allows these creative thoughts to occur. And I'll tell you all, so I'm excited to get back into these spaces because I'm just coming off of a kind of, I'll call it a hiatus. Well, I was doing the JOB. I was literally and figuratively on an island in the Mediterranean for the last 2 years, leading a NATO unit flying the Global Hawk in Sicily. And so I've been off doing other things, but one thing I'll tell you that we had front row view is the war in Ukraine. And I tell you what, one thing I've really picked up on watching the war in Ukraine from the sidelines is that there's some creative ideas going on in how a small and decently funded military is coming up with creative ways to take on a military that has what many believe is complete overmatch in the Russians. And so, it doesn't take long for us to, or we don't have to look very far to see creativity in action when you watch the Ukrainians come up with creative ways to have an advantage over the Russians. And that's exactly what we have to come up with here. When it comes down to it, we're warfighters, and we're representing the Department of the Air Force. And so I can't wait to see what you guys have come up with. I look forward to the conversations, and thanks so much for letting me be a part of this. Thank you.
Thanks, General. Next up, we welcome to the stage the founder of the Innovatrium and builder of Project Mercury's curriculum. Dr. Jeff DeGrant is a professor of practice at Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan.
Well, first, thanks to everyone here for all their hard work. Most important thing is congratulations. Those who know me well, you don't get a lot of that from me, but you do today. Quite an accomplishment. Big thing about this is it's the start of the journey. You're gonna, as you go on, you're gonna get better at this, but you got to practice. We're going to expect you to go faster. You know, I spend a lot of time with the vice chief and what they're doing. You're going to have to go faster. You're going to have to go bigger, but you're developing that muscle. And this, of course, is the first step, you know, stepping up to these projects. And hopefully you can find places where you can operationalize these projects, because this is really the first step. Now, I love what was said before. You know, you're really participating in a community. What we're trying to do here is to build a community of practice, of highly practiced innovators. And those who know my background, this is how we started it at Apple. This is how we started it at Google. This is what it looks like, right? Now, it's very important that those of you who get through this, who do some really amazing work, that you give back, you coach some teams, you know, you take your best players and you help other people become best players. You enlist the best players. Don't just say, oh, we're looking for people, the best people. If we're going to innovate, we need the best and the brightest. If we're going to take the fight to the people we need to take the fight to. And I'm so excited to give your certifications to those people who worked hard. Most importantly, good luck to all of those who are pitching today. And congratulations to those who have already pitched and are get to watch today. So good luck to everyone, and congratulations.
Thank you, senior leaders. During Cohort 7, we started with 7 teams, a charge to build collaborative networks outside the traditional Air Force lanes, and a lot of ambiguity. In this cohort, 5 successful teams have overcome many hurdles in changing the status quo. They waded through some stubborn problems and sought out unusual ways to make a disproportionate impact.
Regardless of topic, these teams were intentionally designed to harness constructive conflict, refine their problem statements through research and prismatic thinking, pursue connections and context, run experiments, examine what is wow and what is worth doing, prepare a pitch, and enlist a sponsor. Now let's get to our main event.
For those who have attended previous showcases, we are changing it up this time. All 5 teams will have the opportunity to share and discuss their findings with our esteemed panel and you, our innovation community. Our first 3 teams will be presenting using a condensed pre-recorded pitch, followed by 5 minutes of questions and answers.
After that, we'll roll into the final 2 teams who will share their full-length pitches with a 10-minute Q&A. As always, throughout all pitches, we encourage everyone to comment, share information, and get connected in the chat. And don't worry, the videos from all 5 teams will be made available through our LinkedIn page. Now let's get to the pitches.
And strike your best critic pose, because at the end of the first 3 pitches, you, the audience, will have a chance to vote on what you think is the best short version pitch. Yes, it's the Project Mercury's People's Choice Award.
The first video is from Team Deuces. They're looking at how to increase the effectiveness of meetings by accelerating information change and eliminating repetitive data collection tasks. They were coached by John Kerrigan, John Lee, and Nadia Fisher. Team members sound off in the chat to let the audience know where the team is, and be prepared to field questions in the chat. Let's roll the film.
Project Mercury, Cohort 7, Team 2, The Deuces, is comprised of 5 members from across the Air Force, different AFSCs and experiences. Collectively, we have 68 years of combined military service. Team 2, The Deuces project was to look at the Accelerate Change action orders, and we focused on action order Bravo bureaucracy. looking into ways to cut through the red tape and save airmen time everywhere. So we looked at meetings. So here you've got Airman Snuffy, who collects vast amounts of data, spends tens of hours every week putting data together from various sources into reports that once they get to the meeting are widely ignored unless something's in the red. So there he is, feeling awful because he's wasted all that time making that info for these people who are just bored and wish the meeting would have been an email. So then the boss gets up, he doesn't like how something's formatted, makes one comment, and boom, the staff is back to scrambling around for the next week, tweaking all sorts of aspects to make that slideshow better. So Snuffy found that he can avoid all these tweaks and formatting problems by using tools already available in the Air Force. Using tools such as Advana, Envision, Tableau, and Vault, Airman Snuffy can retrieve, compile, and display vital information automatically. So not only does this make life easier, but it also ensures information presented is current and free from human error. 2 units that are currently using live data tools to save time are Air Force Global Strike Command 2nd Bomb Wing and AMC's 621st Contingency Response Wing. Both of these units use Envision, which came from Project Brown Heron to address personnel readiness issues across the air and space forces. The 2nd Bomb Wing uses Envision during weekly planning and scheduling meetings and saves about 1,000 hours annually. The 621st uses Envision to track over 23,000 deployment requirements and 59,000 CBT records for 1,000 airmen. So the next thing our team looked at was the Air Force Handbook 33-337, which is a tongue and quill that mandates the use of PowerPoint presentations in meetings. It spells out exactly how effective meetings should be structured and tailored. Now there's a lot of good here, some stuff's outdated, but I don't think enough people have really read this and applied it to their toolbox. So the next thing we evaluated was civilian industry best practices and technology options. One company that caught our attention was Amazon. During Jeff Bezos' tenure as its CEO, he banned PowerPoint from their meetings. He replaced it with a preview document that everybody would study, and then after they were done, they would then discuss the content and develop solutions to the problems. Team Deuces believes that if we take the currently existing tools and technology the Air Force already has and put it with industry best practices and what those can teach us, we can further tackle Action Order Bravo's bureaucracy problem. Our ask is that leaders at every level support our initiative for an Action Order Bravo appendix. This appendix would promote the exploration and implementation of existing systems to automate and simplify mundane tasks while maximizing accuracy and efficiency in the way we collect data and present it at meetings.
Judges, like to open it up to y'all for any questions, comments, pushback, or feedback.
Okay, thanks. I'll go first here. I have one alibi. I just got my eyes dilated, so I'm voice only. So I have no idea what's happening on your slides or in the chat, but happy to be here nonetheless. Second, I do have a bias already because I hate meetings, loathe meetings. So I was so excited that this was one of the things that's being tackled. I do have a question though. It seems like you have a technical answer to a problem, but that the essence of the problem may actually be cultural, right? Like there's a reason that we aren't using or are not more widely using some of the solutions that you came up with. So what's your answer to that? Like how you built the tool, are people going to use the tool?
Hey, sir, I'll jump in here. It's JB Boswell. Good to see you.
Hey, JB.
So you're absolutely right. You know, it is a cultural problem. And so we looked at this from different tiers of how to get after it, right? So one is technology to reduce redundant information, bring in live data. The other would be how do we affect cultural change at different echelons? So, you know, proposing modifications to action orders from the top, but then best practices, you know, all the way down to the squadron level. So And then part of this too is we started working on an article to push out with those best practices, really to try to get after the culture that needs to change. And so we realized like culture doesn't just change overnight. And so what are the different, kind of three prongs that we could push here to try to institute that change. Team 2, please jump in if you have anything else. Thanks.
Hey, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you, Aaron. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I was waiting for confirmation. Yes, so like JB was saying, the more we looked into this, the more we realized it is cultural, like was being said. So the tools, a lot of tools already exist. It's just a matter of training people to use them. So for instance, like if your unit deployment managers are going to use Envision or a similar program, they just need to be made aware of and trained on, and they need to use the program. And our other thought was that we needed some sort of like comment from the top, because everybody's supposed to be innovating, but we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And also when the tools already exist, we should go ahead and use those to save all of our time.
Yeah, and there are organizations out there at different echelons that are effectively engaging and changing their meeting culture, whether that's Air Force Futures with General High Note, down to the 70th ISR wing where I'm coming from, which has really adopted kind of a Jeff Bezos type model of getting away from PowerPoint altogether. We all hate meetings. We've all been there and sat through slideshows. And so really just taking a stab here at different approaches to start changing that culture where we can, or broadcasting best practices. Over.
All right, thanks. I don't know if any of the other judges have questions as well.
Yeah, this is Rob Olson.
Yeah, that's about all the time that we have.
Oh, okay.
Move on. But thank you, Colonel Trier.
Thanks, Team Deuces. Now we have Team Jelen with Project Carthage, focused on countering China's One Belt, One Road initiative in West Africa. China has a 100-year vision. What's ours? Team Jelen was coached by my teammate from Cohort 5, Amy and Natalini, and my esteemed co-host, Britt Harland. Team members, remember to put your location in the chat field along with what questions you have.
By 2050, the population of Africa is due to double, and Nigeria will overtake the United States as the third most populous country. Nations in Africa will become manufacturing hubs, major economic actors, critical trade partners, and the bounty of natural and strategic resources guarantees that the continent will be central to any great power conflicts of the future. Given this explosion of growth, there is a bevy of potential in these African nations. As such, Africa is a key element in the Chinese strategy to become a great power in this century. In 2015, the Chinese were distributing televisions to 10,000 villages in 25 sub-Saharan nations. 2 years later, they built their first foreign naval port and placed it in Djibouti. In the Beijing Action Plan, China called for the establishment of 50 separate security programs between China and partner entities across Africa. Looking to project their power farther, they have eyed Equatorial Guinea for a second foreign naval base. Although America has a presence on the continent in various partnerships and initiatives, we are failing to counter China proportionally and with a focus on the issues that African partners prioritize most. Interviews with the DoD, Department of State, and private U.S. corporations all highlighted a lack of coordination around Africa. In a resource-scarce environment, we can ill afford to not maximize our efforts and connect effectively. In one partner nation, key military email traffic is still being conducted on Gmail and Yahoo rather than secure networks. Delivering a few thousand profiles to our partner nation would be low cost to the US and high reward to the potential partner, while showing our willingness to listen and help. With the proper cooperation and coordination, this could be an easy win while driving the US goal of increasing the cybersecurity of our potential ally. This is where Project Carthage comes in. From Carthage, the Phoenicians once connected Europe and Africa through a common trade language. Today, Project Carthage seeks to connect allies through a common vision and partnership. Through our project, we will be able to identify vital issues, find where they align with U.S. strategy, and get eyes on from the relevant U.S. actors to assist. We are seeking sponsorship from AFRICOM J5 in order to implement a two-part solution. First, in alignment with the Biden administration's recent announcement of a pivot toward Africa, we are seeking $75,000 in order to host a strategy workshop in West Africa where the DoD, DOS, State Partnership Program, and 5 West African nations can hone in on 10 issues that are important to and sourced from our Western African allies, where the U.S. can leverage its political, military, and civilian resources to assist. Second, we are seeking to create a web-based forum which will complement existing databases and informal networking platforms to bring together our West African allies and U.S. military and civilian components in order to identify and cooperate on African problems. By making this new forum the default landing page for desk officers in AFRICOM and the Department of State's Bureau of African Affairs, we can ensure eyes-on and facilitate the cooperation within our governmental actors. By indirectly including allies, we can expand the idea pool while avoiding the access issues encountered on secure databases. This forum would stand apart from others due to its focus on end-user initiation, organic host country problem sets, participation within individuals and agencies, and its connection to existing U.S. databases. If we can achieve these strategy goals in West Africa and create a low or no barrier tool to promote cooperation among members and partners, then we stand a chance of not only helping our allies, but denying our competitors the space to act.
All right, judges. Rob, what questions do you all have? We're going to do a 5-minute Q&A. Don't worry, we'll give you a 1-minute heads up.
First of all, I have to applaud really loudly this particular focus area. And because Africa is the pivot that exists between the poles of it's the fulcrum between the two poles of China and the US. And so if we do not get that right, we will be in great trouble in 50 years. And so thank you for focusing on that. Lots of good insights. Can you specifically say your recommendations again, your calls to action? I got that there was a new landing page and that sort of thing. Can you just run that down real quick for me?
Sure. This is Major Chang. I'll jump in here real quick. So one of the things we identified while we were doing all the research for this project was that there really wasn't a resource that actually captured all the different, the whole of government efforts that we have going on in the region. So a lot of the different organizations working in kind of a stovepipe situation. And, we thought that this would be an asymmetric way to improve impacts by basically helping organizations look at other efforts that might link together. So that's really our focus point, was creating this tool that people could go out and kind of align their efforts and see what's already going on the continent. Because a lot of the desk officers, a lot of the people that work out there in the State Department kind of work in their own team, or maybe within their own countries that they're assigned to, but not necessarily cross country or cross platform.
Okay, got it. That makes a lot of sense. That sounds like the getting the fundamentals right. And then you mentioned organically sourced issues. How would that work?
So I can talk to that one. So we actually, during our pitch with both SAF-IA, so the International Affairs arm of the Air Force, and then also to AFRICOM, we had a discussion about hosting a design thinking workshop on the continent, primarily with members that have previously gone through different, Air University or other courses in the United States. So African country military members, alumni from those networks, along with a few US and other allies from outside of the continent. in a design thinking, a couple days of innovation education, and a couple days of problem sourcing, so that we're actually going after problems that they see as important and want to solve.
And that one's spot on. I would just say where I'd love to see you expand that thought, and maybe you have already done so, because it's hard to get it all across in a short video like that. The idea that the same idea that we use here in Mercury and in Aim High, that there's the people who would come together to initiate some organic problem solving, and then there's the alignment with the key stakeholders, the senior leaders, such that those problem solving efforts would actually lead to action. So is that part of how you think about it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Sorry for setting you up for a question where the only right answer is yes. No, he didn't come from all those years at Procter & Gamble for nothing. Okay. All right. Really super effort. It's just getting it would put a nice dent in. And here's what I liked about your insight real quick, and then I'll shut up because I think our time's about done. You get that 10 years from now, the people who will be predisposed to align themselves with US interests are the people who the US helped solve problems today and tomorrow, right? And they could be very small problems. Why do I still have an American Express green card? Because they were the only credit card company that would give me a credit card in my senior year of college. Everybody else demanded that I graduate. American Express goes, "Oh, you're an engineering student. We'll take a bet on you," and I'm loyal. This kind of boots on the ground, what's your issue? I'm genuinely going to help you solve it, is what will drive big differences later, because of some of those people we do that for will become the mid-level and even the senior leaders in Africa. And then they will look at us as a partner instead of an adversary. So well done.
We have time for one more quick question. And also, team, please look through the chat and feel free to answer any of the questions that were posted in the chat.
I don't have a question, just something to throw out there. This is a great example, I think, of when people say eating your own dog food, where, like, Project Mercury is about using collaboration and creativity and competition to come up with an idea. And then the idea they came up with used collaboration and creativity and competition. And I think that goes to the metaphors you heard in the beginning about developing the muscle or conditioning yourself. Like you're doing a thing, and then eventually you have built the capacity to do lots of other things. So great job, team.
Thanks, judges. Next up, we have Team 7 Squares to the left, who worked on Pathfinder. How might we align mission and motivation to capture various skills airmen possess outside of their AFSC? This team took a slightly different approach on their video. Don't worry if you're seeing a blank screen. Listen closely to their audio and all will be revealed. They were coached by Gene Cotto, Al Luna, and Aaron Cross. In action.
There's a popular storyline utilized in many forms of media, where a character goes on a quest or seeks for an answer or ability, only to find it was in them all along. I propose that the Air Force is currently on that journey or quest, seeking answers from industry and other sources, and not once considering what was in them all along. This is 7 Squares to the left, and we're going to share with you what we discovered on our own journey and how that can help the Air Force. So airmen are seeking mastery in a variety of skills and abilities, many outside their traditional career field. Some of these have been through higher education, trade training, certifications, and just good old-fashioned, I'm gonna learn that. We propose an application allowing airmen to register their talent and skills. Anyone can have the ability to search for a skill or otherwise something that they need help in. They can then choose an airman from the app, connect with them, and work on a project together. This can take many means, part-time, virtual, or even full-time. This would be utilizing the application's ability to include supervisors and commanders into the equation. I think at this point, an example may help. Let's say I need to produce a 3-minute video pitching my team's idea. I log into our app, Pathfinder, utilizing a CAC authorization. I now search for near Ramstein Air Base for anyone that has video editing or producing skills. Let's say I find 3 airmen. 2 have 5-star ratings and 1 has a 1-star rating. I can now select those airmen, 1 of them, 2 of them, or all 3, and make a bid for their time with a I need help creating a 3-minute video pitch, and I know nothing about video creation. I now wait for an answer. I get one that says that the video editing is intense, and if I provide more justification on what this will do to their supervisor and commander, they may be able to get to do this full time for a little bit. I do that, and then they do get to work full time. So I work with this airman, and the video is created, and it's a hit, and even helped me get more funding, increase lethality, etc., etc. I believe at this point, you've been staring at a blank screen for a while. That is because this app doesn't exist, and I do not possess the skills needed and could not find help. Apply this similar scenario to SharePoint, Python data analytics, cybersecurity, Security Plus, even singing the national anthem. Connecting and supporting the additional skills our airmen have is essential to maintaining our edge in today's fight. Support our effort and help the Air Force realize it was in them all along.
All right, judges, what questions, comments, or pushback do you have?
Let's go out to Dr. DeGraff. Jeff, do you have a question for the team?
Yeah, so one of the things we keep coming back to is that we're going to teach people how to do stuff, and we're going to push solutions onto people. And it's a common theme that you're going to see, particularly when you get a lot of engineers together. You know, here's the process that's going to fix this. Here's my question. Aren't there already 1 million of these tools and processes in the Air Force? And the fundamental question comes back to what Toga had said earlier. It's 2 things are missing here. Number one, what is the onus, the cultural issue of pulling? Meaning how are airmen reaching out and doing things that are putting pressure on the system because they're already finding solutions. So I just want to start out with that first concept. When I look around the Air Force, the thing that really impresses me is in some places I see airmen saying, I'm not waiting for the cavalry to come. It's not coming. So we're going to do it. It's that self-authorizing behavior. In other places, I see people kind of waiting for it and really kind of upset in that reactive position. So I like the idea, but what's missing for me is where is the demand curve for this, right? And the second piece is, why are we building as opposed to those people who've demanded and they've basically built stuff? Why aren't we resourcing them? Because they're already exhibiting that behavior. So I'm asking a kind of really tough question, and it really applies to everything I've heard here. The notion that we provide the solution and they're going to use it versus these are the people challenging the system, putting their careers on the line. Why aren't we looking at the solutions that they build and resourcing them? That would be sorry, you asked me to push back. So that's the old professor pushing back. But I want to hear how we're going to solve the problem of getting demand curve up as opposed to trying to push another thing down. I've got everyone on their heels now. That's what old professors do. Come on, somebody get courage and give me some thoughts on how we're going to do this.
Come on, you guys went through this. Push your back on
how we're going to do this.
So for team 4, we're looking at different ways that we can implement this. And one thing that's interesting about it is a lot of us have been looking at different levels of scalability. one idea plugging in to folks that might actually need this and want to champion it and are already doing it on their own is the AFWorks Spark cells, because they're having to use talents that they are having to find within one another. So that kind of was a light bulb, what we just said about finding someone who's already doing it on their own, having to kind of buck the system, and then using them to show that there's value in what we're trying to do, rather than just, throw another platform.
Greg, it would have been really interesting to let's redo the video just really quickly for learning purposes. Let's redo the video just really quickly for learning purposes. So I think, Robert, we're getting some feedback on your device here, but here's the thing. Imagine if you didn't show anything, but the answer would have been, I tried and I couldn't figure this out. I tried. So, and I couldn't get the answer in the Air Force, but I got this friend, Bud or Robbie or Susan or whatever, and they helped me figure it out. And here's the last minute of the video. So my question is, why can't I go to somebody who actually is going to help me and will figure out how to help me, as opposed to try? See, now all of a sudden, you're doing something that I think the Air Force needs. You're putting pressure on the Air Force to respond. You're taking the initiative and showing it can be done, and saying, oh, take that, you got something better than that. And that puts the Air Force, instead of us, in a reactive position, makes them want to respond.
We got time for one more quick question, comment, or pushback.
We got time for one more quick question.
I'm going to leave this to anybody else. I think I've already got people on their heels.
So just real quick, did you find other systems that are promising to do this? I know this challenge has come up in Aim High and Mercury before. So what already exists that you guys could put wind under their wings?
We did look at quite a few other systems instead of creating our own. Hey, Robert, thanks, man. So whether it's MyVector, Vision, there are so many databases and apps and places that exist. So we were hoping to create a place where people could put their inventory of extra skills and talents and interests that aren't necessarily Air Force approved, or there isn't already a place for those things. So for me, it's a marketing problem more than a technology and another systems problem. But how do you create the place and the way for folks to do the search, to do the research within whatever system they're currently using, so that it's location based and skills based and timing? Do you need them for a week or for a month? And then there were issues that our team looked at as well, like how do you incentivize people sharing their talent for the greater good of the Air Force? Over.
That's all our time. Great conversation, and the chat is going to be open for the conversation to continue. So, definitely great points. Thank you to our first three teams, Team Deuces, Jellin, and Team 7 Squared to the left. It's time for a Zoom community to vote on the People's Choice Award. Which team has proposed how to solve a real problem with a real solution, and is it wow? You choose. We'll collect the results and announce the winner during the awards portion of the showcase.
All right, now it's time for our 2 live full-length pitches.
I'm delighted to introduce Team Mad Hatter. How might the Department of the Air Force improve humanitarian assistance and disaster response outcomes? They were coached by David Brewer and Christian Torma. Remember, you may use the chat feature to ask questions during the pitch. Moose, the floor is yours.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of the Mad Hatter team, we'd like to welcome you here with us today. I'm Spanky Baldwin, and then my fellow presenter is going to be Moose Damaris. We're coached, as stated by Dave Brewster and Kristen Torma, and there's a lot to cover, so let's get started.
To share your sound when you're sharing the video.
Moose, go ahead and just play the video. So I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Imagine that there would have been dramatic music along with that, but technical difficulties aside, we're the Mad Hatters. We're here to bring an innovative approach to disaster response. And so thanks for the opportunity to tell you about our project, Mad Hatter. We've created a tool that's more than just an app. It's a simple and easy to use solution that enables personnel to collect, package, and share data that's vital to a coordinated and efficient disaster response by using smart devices. We want to create sensors able to seamlessly share information across organizations, ensuring those who desperately need timely information have it in near real time. We believe that this project has provided real value in this initial development phase and hope to partner with other agencies to continue its further development. So Tyndall Air Force Base sticks out as one of the most memorable disasters in recent history. Well, the base was successfully evacuated. There were damages and billions of dollars and a complete loss of mission capabilities. One of my biggest takeaways was stories from members who responded to Tyndall from both the AFSOC and the Contingency Response Enterprise. They shared with us how chaotic the situation was on the ground immediately following the event. There was no common operating picture, and few were able to assess with accuracy the severity of the impact of the base and local community before they arrived on the scene. And believe it or not, a half a decade later, we still don't have the ability to clearly and effectively communicate situational awareness after a disaster. During our project, our FEMA colleagues shared with us they're essentially blind for at least 4 and up to 48 hours after a disaster event. We can't build a common operating picture, nor do we have the capability to quickly and succinctly communicate critical pieces of information to those who need it most. Moose is going to explain the development of our tool and the solution to that problem.
Moose, you're muted.
Over the past couple of weeks, the Civil Air Patrol has had the opportunity to provide support to victims. All right.
Sorry. So over the past 2 weeks, Civil Air Patrol's had the opportunity to provide to the victims of Kentucky and the flood disaster and support them. And more specifically, CAP was able to collect and share imagery as well as information on high water marks, which is a measure of flooding in the local area to local responders. These GPS identified locations were critical to helping emergency managers know when and where to send responders to save lives, protect property. Prior to the digital tools, teams recorded information that they needed with literally pen and paper in the field and loaded that information into databases when they returned. Over the last few years, CAP and FEMA have worked together to develop high watermark data collection tools, which are pictured here, to allow field teams to be more effective. This data is now collected and reported when teams are in the field in near real time, allowing for flood models to be updated daily, if not more frequently, and more importantly, critical issues to be addressed sooner. This tool reduces the time it takes to get the information from the person in the field to decision makers from hours into minutes or even seconds. Apps like this make it possible to collect more than just high watermarks. The app previously utilized by CAP, and it was quickly modified to allow personnel in the field to report on other issues like damaged structures and individuals in need of emergency assistance. CAP personnel are now also able to report damage to lines of communication and infrastructure such as roads and bridges being washed out, allowing responders to be rerouted quickly and saving precious moments for someone at risk of losing their life. And Spanky's going to go over how the app actually works.
Thanks, Moose. Mad Hatter is the next evolution of tools developed by CAP and FEMA. The app allows everyone with system access to record critical data in the field and have it instantly shared with those managing or responding to the event. The data can be tracked via the app and shared in an online dashboard. The dashboard allows for fidelity for decision makers by enhancing overall systems integration and map functions. The tool has limited capabilities right now. The screenshot shows you what it's already capable of, and we're continuing to work hard in order to onboard additional capabilities as soon as we can. So let me give you an example of what the future may hold. When the next storm hits Tyndall, the ride-out and recovery teams, they're now equipped with Mad Hatter. The teams can take out their devices and immediately note changes they are seeing and report it. The video captures input of a responder that has come across the down power line. And so they'll take out their device and go through an app of how they would access the Mad Hatter app, select their organization. We're recording a training entry currently. They're going to look at a down power line. So they're going to click the down power line. They'll snap a picture of the down power line. They'll click the orange button, note the severity. That's uploaded to a map. They'll confirm the location on the map. And then that will sync to the FEMA Geo portal and be displayed as you see here. So information is collected and provides a robust picture of situational analysis across the AOR in near real time. This information, decision makers are able to reroute teams around blocked roads and assess damage to facilities and infrastructure. And more importantly, the decision makers aren't flying blind for long. And the example that you see here on the Geo portal, the lower center portion, you can see where that down power line information that we just captured via the tool. Moose is going to tell you a little bit about our current team and how we're developing.
So here's our current team. From the moment they heard our idea, the members of FEMA and the CAP immediately began coordinating with us to develop this critical capability, and then expanding from a few hundred members to thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands, if not more, credential responders with access eventually. FEMA is currently working through additional funding opportunities and agreements with CAP that could lead to this tool being enhanced and fielded now for real-world scenarios. Our team pitched to the FEMA Geospatial Coordinator last week, and they have agreed to partner with us and host the data collected and help them develop the Mad Hatter tool. So here's our plan. Over the next 6 months, experiment and really flush out the app, field test it for a few months while working integration and security issues, and then get out tested apps across the Department of the Air Force before the peak of the storm seasons next summer, starting with the early adopters and then on to other bases. So here's our ask. We need a few things to really continue this going forward. First, we need FEMA, CAP, and Department of the Air Force to identify the POCs and the primary and backup to really support the work. Second, commitments from the Department of the Air Force for development. We have commitments from FEMA and CAP for their portions to get this started, but need Department of the Air Force support to really get this out to the bases across the Air Force. And last, we need to probably establish a data sharing agreement between FEMA, CAP, and the Department of the Air Force. So any thoughts on our program in Mad Hatter?
Hey, that was awesome. Time for the judges' comments and questions. Let's start with Brigadier General Cantwell.
Super. Hey, Moose, Spanky, absolutely fantastic job. I probably have more questions than we have time for, and so that certainly you sparked a lot of thoughts in my mind. Certainly, we're never going to get away from these incidents. They're gonna keep happening. We're getting more fires off in the West due to climate change. But some fundamental questions I've got are, as you guys work through some of your assumptions, how did the presence of cellular service go into your conversation? I mean, I haven't studied, huge disasters, but I would think something like a hurricane would knock that out for the first day or two. What'd you guys come up with?
Sure. That actually came up in our discussions with the geospatial coordinator at FEMA, sir. And one of the things that it was a challenge for this was getting that data out. Now, the interesting thing enough was that though the imagery that may have difficulty getting out, in many cases, people were able to get small texts out. So the small bytes of data could still get out in many cases, even in those first couple of days. So as we started working on the development of the app, we allowed for the folks to actually be able to provide a picture or not, depending on their data scaling and what was available at the time.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is even in a large tragedy, there's at least rudimentary cell service pretty soon after the event. Is that what
Yes,
you guys
sir.
are finding?
In our works with FEMA, one of the things that they mentioned was they actually bring in what they call cows. They're called cells on wheels from the providers. And those are generally moved in fairly quickly, especially with things like hurricanes. In many cases, they're pre-positioned to be able to be rolled in very quickly.
Gotcha. Super. Thanks. Next, what has stopped FEMA from doing something like this previously? I mean, this really is rocket science.
There's a lot of challenges with doing this, though. Ironically, though, we found a lot of stovepipes as we went through in the development of this, and it wasn't that there weren't solutions. In many cases, that there were solutions for pieces of it. That it's the integration, and now the geospatial portal is actually in development. Ironically, up until the last few years, there had only been a handful of staff handling geospatial issues for FEMA. It was really kind of left out to the masses. And now they've really worked the development and have staffing out in the field and are really trying to get into that centralized management.
Got it. Okay. And then two quick ones, or I guess more comments. I saw in your future, you had a command and control element. I think that would be certainly key to really adding value to this, because what I've heard in these events is it's really hard to have solid C2 of the forces of what's going on. What you've talked about today was a lot of situational awareness. And then finally, have you had any discussions with the National Guard? Because I would imagine that, the Guard is the one that gets really called out to a lot of these events, when it's a really bad disaster.
Yes, sir. We actually had some discussions with the emergency preparedness liaison officers to get some ideas flowing as to that. And they actually have EPLOs assigned to every state as well as territorial areas. And they, in many cases, said, yeah, this would be a good player for the National Guard. And ironically, the FEMA hosting the data, some of the data that's actually in some of the applications that are already used for the bases like Chimera, it actually used the pieces from the GeoPortal already. So that integration kind of happened somewhat seamlessly just by getting the pieces to the right players.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for those insights. Over to the other judges. Any other comments or questions?
Hey, this is Rob Olson. I've been blasting it out here in the chat. Team Next Bonders took this on in Cohort 6 and came to some similar conclusions, some different conclusions. But one of the things that they were trying to address was what you brought up, sir, which was what happens when cellular's down. Okay. And yes, cellular does get brought back up quickly, but quickly is still hours to days, not minutes. Okay. And so the Next Bonders team had a really advanced approach, which actually is totally technically feasible. And that's to do a peer-to-peer network among cell phones. because the cell phones, even though you don't have a tower, the cell phones could all reach each other. And so if you do the right kind of coding, you could have that bring that up. So I really dearly love where you are. I think you have taken it farther than next responders, because this team has actually produced a usable app, but I would strongly recommend connecting with that team from Cohort 6 and addressing and learning about how they were going to address what happens when all comms is down. I have a lot of heart for that problem anyway, because I think China is surely playing scenarios where that will be true, right? And so we're talking about it in natural disasters scenario, but it'll certainly a possibility in a conflict scenario as well. And so the more we get ahead of that, the better we are. And fortunately, this team, Gene Cotto is a coach of the 7 Squares team, but Gene was on the Next Responders team in Cohort 6. So you have a direct connection that you can leverage there. So brilliant, applaud it. Don't really have a question, just saying, keep going and definitely look at the all standard comms are down scenario. It shouldn't be the first thing you tackle, but it should be on your list.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I see that Aaliyah Nadeem has joined us, but I can't see if her camera or video works. Aaliyah, can you come up voice at all?
Hey, yeah, can you hear me guys okay?
We've gotcha.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Hey, first of all, Moose, I really wanted to commend you for the testing. I really appreciated the phases in that. I think it is very important. One of the questions I have is, did FEMA, CAP, and Air Force put a demand signal for this? Have we heard from, what I'd call tactical users? Have they said that they wanted something like this? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We actually had the opportunity throughout the cohort to talk to a variety of folks across FEMA. We actually participated in an urban search and rescue exercise with the deployable teams. And this was one of their challenges, was being able to get data for those teams before they get on the ground. Those USAR teams in many cases deploy a few hours to a few days later, but in many cases they echoed the sentiments from the geospatial coordinator that they just didn't have a lot of valuable data, but then figured out that by having airmen and guardians and our CAP members and Air Force civilians that even from their own homes could just very simply say, yes, this is what I'm seeing, it provided them a clear picture. And we found the same thing when we talked to Air Force personnel, that after the very disasters, that they're essentially flying blind in some cases. They have data from their own personnel, whether it be security forces or firefighters or other responders, but the data was limited, where they could get a good picture from trusted airmen when they know that these are a good source of data.
Thank you very much.
We have a couple more minutes left for questions and answers. Feel free to, please don't forget about the chat. Mad Hatters, got a couple more minutes.
Yeah, I've got one more. This Rob. Oh, sorry, strumming the guitar as I listened. I meant to put that out of the shot because I'm not a very good guitarist. But anyway, Ethan brought up a great point. Ethan Eagle brought up a great point in the chat, and we also tackled this on the Next Responders thing in Cohort 6, which is this could be subject to abuse too, and it's not a reason to stop, because all things are subject to abuse. So you don't let the fact that some bad actor could misuse your system stop you. You don't let that happen. On the other hand, you do have to think through the scenarios and how do you make sure it doesn't get hijacked. So did you guys go down hijacked or used nefariously, or somebody whose whole idea is anarchy says, oh, first responders go over here where there's no need, so that you miss where there's actually a need? Because as crazy it is to sane people like us, there are crazy people out there like that. And so did you guys go down that path at all?
We did. The security was actually one of the main topics when we were discussing this with our FEMA counterparts as well. So interestingly enough, the tools that we started looking at are actually enterprise level solutions for the Esri platforms. They're basically the geospatial giant out there that when you look at those kinds of tools. But the Air Force and Civil Air Patrol and FEMA all have somewhat integrated solution packages that are tied to that can then essentially be tied to like a CAT card or other security tools to know where it's coming from. So the visualization of the data can be made public, but you can also limit the views and limit the entries. So it's not just a free form entry. Now, for the demonstration purposes here today, we made it open so folks could actually go in there and be able to use the basic application and get functionality. But for the rollouts, we would actually do it in a more secure form. And we've actually talked with some of the development team about even the data in some cases. If you had an airman that, for example, reporting on something happening on the base, there would even be security concerns there. But we believe that there's ways to actually do that with geofencing to limit those views to a certain access. So like within Chimera on the base, so that the folks could just see what's on base and just the responders could see it, or you could limit it based on their access.
That's great. And so again, I please hear this in the tone at which it's intended. Desperately want you to touch base with the next Bonders team from last time and just take everything they've got. But you guys have taken it much farther. You guys got a working prototype. That's brilliant. And this continues to be, I have a lot of heart for this one. And so as a citizen, I want this out there, and I want it out there yesterday.
Yes, sir. But you may not realize that I actually advised the team in the last round. So I actually work in the Hatter space day to day, and Joe Hall on that team actually is one of my folks that I work with day to day.
Oh, so you already have all that input?
Yes, sir. I actually got them hooked up on some of the folks the last time around. So we kind of had an inside track for some of that beforehand.
Outstanding. Outstanding. What do you think of the peer-to-peer approach as a future thing?
Lots of opportunities, sir. One of the tools that we looked at with Aeronet actually would allow us to fly a package on a UAV that could provide that kind of access to a small area. So there are lots of opportunities in that regard.
Brilliant. Okay, so sorry for wasting your time on that. You guys are already connected. Outstanding.
All good info, sir.
Bravo, Mad Hatters. Awesome pitch. Really excited to see the connection happening there. Next up is Team Impossible, who are passionate about making training match what is needed for agile combat employment. Training needs to be fast and high quality. They are coached by Daniel Hoverback and myself. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Impossible, innovation runs on carbs.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Rushing. I'm going to be representing Team 3. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and enjoy the show.
Are you tired of massive training backlogs? Long, outdated pipelines for learning any new skill? Waiting for instructors and class dates? Multi-capable airmen not receiving the multi-capabilities they need? Are you worried we just aren't ready for strategic competition and agile combat employment?
In a world of near-peer competition, these clips might turn into, "This isn't science fiction, it's what we do every day." It is up to us as a team to grow stronger and more capable together, to accelerate change and win, and to build the multi-capable airmen we need to succeed during strategic competition. There's a very painful point here. U.S. leadership, starting with the President and White House, spell out in the national security guidance that we must contend with the new threat environment, including China, to defend strategic interests. The National Defense Strategy translates from there, stating that we must defend and deter attacks, namely from China, to protect American interests. From there, the National Military Strategy translates further, warning that our adversaries erode advantages of our military and national strength, and we must face these new strategic competition challenges. The Air Force takes this one step further. Listen to our leaders.
The adversaries we confront today are constantly changing and adapting, and we must do the same.
Our focus as airmen must be to challenge the status quo, to make necessary improvements in our Air Force today so we are ready for tomorrow.
To accelerate change, 4 action orders have been developed that focus on airmen, bureaucracy, competition, and design implementation. These orders will help guide the force into the future.
The U.S. could suffer dangerous consequences, such as attacks from adversaries, loss of influence on the world stage, or even losing the next war. Which leads us to our high-quality target. How might we develop multi-capable airmen with deep expertise beyond their Air Force specialties to best support agile combat employment? We will implement realistic hands-on training to develop versatile and adaptable professionals ready to operate in austere environments in future warfare, starting with the maintenance career fields with ACT Labs. ACT Labs uses the MOTAR dashboard and adds more augmented and virtual reality technology to evolve multi-capable airmen learning options. I'll explain more about MOTAR and the training possibilities in a moment. Multi-capable airmen are useful throughout the spectrum of peacetime and war operations. Agile Combat Employment, or ACE, is an operational concept developed to generate combat power from dispersed operating locations across a contested theater. Multi-capable airmen are airmen who are trained in tasks beyond their primary specialty, and they are the key to sustaining combat operations with a reduced and dispersed personnel footprint. They are the key to successfully employing the Agile Combat Employment concept. During peacetime, our airmen will develop proficiencies in multiple specialties and skill sets, allowing manning flexibility, growing our talent pool, and giving troops the opportunity to learn new skills. During conflict, these multi-capable airmen will leverage their training to fill skills gaps, complete critical tasks, and generate air power in contested environments that are not well suited for large teams. Traditional infrastructure and will have unknowns beyond comprehension. Our team has researched and interviewed experts to include technical training and education, virtual learning platforms, medical fields, maintenance fields, special operations, IT specialists, emerging technologies, unit leadership, Air Force Academy, Air University, USAFE, and PACA. We learned about the training tools, current state of multi-capable airmen learning, formal education, commanders' needs, and pain points for Agile Combat Employment training programs. Your legacy starts now. Be the first to build this program with us and protect the U.S. and our allies from adversaries with ACT Labs, the first ever multi-capable airman training program that leverages the Maintenance Operations and Training Augmented Reality, or MOTAR, platform to develop and host augmented and virtual reality training superior to classroom instruction, but at a fraction of the cost and effort required to conduct field exercises. The projected cost of our project is $1 million to include hardware, contractor support, funding, 3D modeling, TDY training for programmers, and conducting the virtual training. The cost of not doing our project includes possible loss of lives, aircraft, and billions of dollars in repairs.
To sponsor the bare bones concept for validation, the cost is $11,250 for 3 virtual reality setups, plus a training room with desk spaces and 3 airmen to develop content and to run training.
Some current MCA training include long reading assignments and PowerPoints instead of hands-on and realistic training. There is no better use of $1 million. $1 million is used quickly and inefficiently with older training methods and infrastructure. Office furniture, for example, will not save our nation in the future fight against strategic competitors. Millions of dollars a year are spent on military bands, but no offense, these will not help us in future warfare. There is a huge return on investment for the $1 million. We will have a small footprint, highly trained and versatile airmen. More on the technology behind ACT Labs. ACT Labs will use Maintenance Operations and Training Augmented Reality, or MOTAR, as the foundation, and will add more augmented and virtual reality technology to evolve multi-capable airman learning options. What is MOTAR? It's a platform developed to improve maintenance training. It began expanding into other career fields such as logistics, and it's capable of dramatically improving skills-based training across the entirety of the Department of the Air Force. Maintenance and logistic groups in different MAJCOMs involved in this initial proof of concept were met with success. 150 Air Force units are already experimenting with MOTAR's augmented reality training for maintenance skills. For example, the formal crew chief course uses technology for 4 classes. The class is finished in half the time needed for a traditional tech school course, with the same class average as older classes, and they increased relevant skills, updated the curriculum with quality education, and the students actually had better retention of the materials. Let's grow this more effective training into something much larger scale and include all career fields. This could become the primary source of airman learning in the near future. ACT Labs can be used to conduct and improve all levels of ACE training and develop courses to satisfy wing-specific training requirements, and to develop adaptability with training scenarios that combine different skill sets. The Air Force is not already doing this as a primary and widespread method of learning, and it really needs to. Why aren't we using this technology in all career fields? Why aren't we collaborating and sharing this technology with our allies and partners? This is wow. We could get the Air Force to a much better place with this type of upgraded training. Yes, and ACT Labs will empower commanders by making MOTAR and these expanded training options accessible and ready for upgrade at the squadron level for short notice and customized training needs. Yes, and ACT Labs can augment or even replace current training methods, freeing up time and resources in older learning platforms and classrooms. Yes, and ACT Labs, using the MOTAR dashboard, will house other learning libraries, best practices from around the Air Force, and will host future training programs and technologies that don't even exist yet. Yes, and ACT Labs will be secured with CAC-enabled access and the possibility for classified materials in the future. Yes, and we will take advantage of the infrastructure that already exists for training technology delivery. We already have tablets and cell phones with us everywhere we go. Phones and tablets are able to receive the content, and they are cheap, effective, and most people already have access to the hardware and bring it to deployed environments. Yes, and ACT Labs will be available everywhere. Computers in the office or home, all of our smartphones downrange, special headsets or other technologies can also be used with ACT Labs. There are so many options. Yes, and airmen of all ranks are empowered to innovate and add customized training to ACT Labs, allowing for streamlined innovation and learning. Yes, and ACT Labs will expand into more career fields in the near future.
Let's accelerate change into the future of multi-capable airman training that's available to all 24/7. Break down those training backlogs, the strain on classroom spaces, instructor shortages, and bring new and needed skill sets to our airmen. Accelerate change in the Air Force now by building realistic training for multi-capable airmen. It's time to act with Agile Combat Training.
Thanks, team Impossible. Now, judges, let's start with Rob. What questions, comments, or pushback do you have?
So comment first, an outstanding pitch. And I see that you fell in love with one of the great phrases for collaborative innovation. Yes, and. So well done. I loved you beating that one over the head. because it is a powerful phrase. It is a powerful phrase when it comes to this kind of innovation. Okay, so brilliantly done. Who are your sponsors and what do they say?
Thank you for the comments. So I was debating taking out some of those yes ands, but I'll take that as a good thing. I made the right choice. So right now, I'm actually in the process of talking to AETC's command chief, Chief Thompson. We've started talking. He wants to talk to us like more in person. I did send him the shorter version of our video for now until I can get on his schedule, but he's interested.
All right, great, great. The how much did you dig into AR versus VR? And do you have a point of view on the role each will play? Because they're kind of two different things. And again, I have another, in this case, an AIM High team that dug into this, Ramrod, that you may want to talk to if you haven't already. Now I'll ask this question up front. Have you talked to Team Ramrod from AIM High?
We've not talked to Team Ramrod, excuse me. This is Mark Wheeler, by the way. But we did talk to Det 23 a lot. We mostly focused on VR training over AR for this. We've only pivoted to this problem set in the last 4 weeks or so. So VR was more of a focus. We think for the agile combat employment, like that offers the greater possibility. Motar talks a big game and offers a lot of possibility for working together and conducting training in conjunction with other people. And we feel like that was the direction we were looking, but AR is definitely a strong possibility as well.
All right, so then the fact that your sponsors are responding positively is great. This does need sponsorship at the HQAF level, right? Okay. Again, I'm going to sound like a little bit of a broken record, but Ramrod explored a different aspect of this, and they did an AR approach, and Brew's on the line here. And so at Northern Strike this summer up in Michigan, they actually demoed an ACE concept using AR and multi-capable airmen to do a combat turn on an A-10. And so they're right there with you, okay? And this is a beautiful thing. This is why the coaches that span the different cohorts are like gold, because we want to connect the dots with you guys, right? So you guys are brilliantly focused on, the big ask at the training level, right? And have some great responses. Okay, and Ramrod has already demoed an AR, multi-capable airman ACE concept in a major exercise, on the highways of Northern Michigan, doing a combat turn on an A-10 off of Route 32, okay? And so I'd love you guys to combine efforts there and see how far you can take it. Brew, are you still with us? Do you have a comment?
Yeah, absolutely. We can get you guys in contact with them, no problem at all.
Awesome, we appreciate it.
And then one last question. This always comes up when we dig in on AR, and it's that some significant fraction of the human population has a limited ability to do, not AR, VR, has limited ability to do VR without getting motion sickness. Okay. What's your point of view on that? Is it an issue, or is the kind of things you're doing not very subject to that, or what's the deal there?
We chose the name Act Labs, for a reason. Like the lab part is there because we need to experiment and find out more. Like, yeah, we're aware that that's an issue. It seems like a fair amount of it is driven by the quality of the VR and the frame rate. So there's more experimentation that we need to do to find out, is that less of a problem for airmen? Is it not a problem if we have high enough resolution and frame rates? So still TBD on that part. But
gotcha.
We want the money and the bandwidth to find out.
And by the way, your ask was well positioned, brilliant. For the cost of a few dozen coffee sets in big meetings, you could bring this to reality. And you're positioning it as a lab is so spot on. Thank you for doing that. It's not the answer, it's an answer. It's a very worthy answer, and it needs to be developed further. And so your concept of doing that in a bare bones lab environment is so spot on. In industry, we have the same thing, right? So when I do my education this fall with my 5 industrial partners here at Duke, okay, and they're working with my student teams, we get them to an answer, a fundable answer, just like you did. But it's not the answer. You have to do the next round of experimentation to figure out how far you should take it. So brilliantly done. You so right-sized this. You have a compelling argument and a right size ask and a great solution. And now if you go partner with Ramrod, you'll have some, you'll be able to fill out the AR side of your portfolio just like that. Boom.
We're down to 5 minutes. Let's go with Dr. DeGraff and then Toga.
Yeah, I want to, nice pitch. About 2 weeks ago on the front page of the Washington Post, the whole idea of using this kind of training in the Air Force made the front page. And it raised 2 or 3 issues that I think are the elephants in the room. And this kind of goes back to the Team 4 thing. The first issue it said was, it showed that this is what happened with hospitals during COVID, and this is what security forces are doing with fire, cross-training, and how this is important. But the issues are really key in a couple different areas. One was, it said that the basic research for this said that this is good for fundamental skills, teaching somebody how to set a broken arm, how to, do something minor. But it said when we got to higher order skills, it began to fail. So 1, the research says there's a limit to what we're going to be able to do here. 2, it talked about why the Air Force was, in one sense, one part of the Air Force very much in favor of this, but another part of the Air Force very much not in favor of it. And again, I don't want to get into the politics of this, but you've had a couple of really spectacular firings very high up in the Air Force around this, right? So this is not an agnostic issue. This is an issue of, do we really know why one group is very pro doing this and another group is not very pro doing this? And the final part to this, I think, is interesting because it relates to what you do, Bonnie. And that is, does this become supplemental to training, or does this change training? So let me give you an example. Here at the Ross School of Business, where I think our last rating, we're the number 7 or 8 business school in the world. What's interesting is we have this place downstairs called the Tazi Center. It's basically for trading. And every student who comes to Michigan, believe it or not, gets $100,000 on day 1 to start trading, right? The notion is there's 2 types of curriculum. The type of curriculum where I'm trying to teach you how to have an innovation strategy. But the other type of curriculum is the opposite. It's not somebody's going to be a strategist. It's somebody's going to trade, stocks and other equities. So there's these kind of 3 issues involved here. I hope I'm making sense here. There's an issue about what can be trained. There's an issue about the politics within the Air Force. And then there's the issue of the education itself. So what I would like to see from this, because I think it's very positive, and there's a wonderful article by Dorothy Leonard, which I think you still have to read in this curriculum, called Deep Smarts. I'd like to see how this carves out so that it's a big ask, but it's focused, right? It's wanting to do something more radical, but in a more limited way. I think that's going to carry you a lot. And one note, right now you're looking at cost effectiveness. That's not where this is going to pay. You need to look at what's called lost opportunity. You're worried about defending. What you need to be doing is worrying about offense. And what lost opportunity means is, what else can you do? And you've already started this. What else can be done if you have this? So I think it's a great start. Focus a little bit more on this, and I think you're really going to get traction. I know Toga's got his hand up.
Yeah, lots of goodness here, but we don't have time to go over what's good about it. That doesn't make us better. So let me tell you what I think could be better. Because this is important stuff, right? And so take this as a sign of respect for the idea. 2 two things about the pitch, one thing about the concept, and the pitch ideas go for everyone here. You're not going to win friends by poking fun at something, some other program in the Air Force. You're not, because you're going to end up coming up against somebody that's like, they like that, or there might be a valid reason. Like, just don't make enemies. It's just, there's no sense to do that. And then don't overstate your case, right? Like, the fact that you started with an infomercial is kind of interesting, because you then did sell this, like, this is going to change everything. And so people will be like, bet you it won't. And they'll automatically start thinking of all the reasons why you have overstated this. So don't do that. Just be honest in your reflection about like what you can get. Because honestly, has anyone learned how to ride a bike through AR or VR? I don't think so, right? There's still a role for tacit knowledge that you have to get a feel for. So anyway, so there's that. And then there's still a bet that you have the right people that have happened to go through the right training, however they get it, that are in that place, in that moment to make ACE work. And so you're still betting that you've done this. And I just wonder, if you imagine like those AEDs that we have everywhere, they assume that you have never seen an AED, that you just know, go get the AED. And the design itself is sort of idiot proof, right? Do this thing here. And I wonder if another way to address this is not the people skills, but like the technology of like, hey, anyone can show up and open the box and then just start knowing what to do. And they've never dealt with it ever before. And so anyone can do it in that moment. Just something to think about. No response necessary. I know we're out of time. I am happy to engage offline, however. Thanks. But overall, great job.
I'd like to talk to a couple of those points real quick if I can. I think the big one is, the deep learning aspect. This isn't a replacement for like, field exercises or being outside and doing this stuff for real. This is a supplement to it. Like, this is a safe space where you can practice dangerous skills over and over again. So when you get out into the field, instead of learning that rudimentary skill, you can focus on that higher level stuff, on the nuance that's necessary to practice these skills, in the real world without hurting anybody. So that was kind of how we envision this. Like, it's a far superior option to PowerPoint and lecture and being in a classroom, but it's not quite as good as the real thing. But you can do it as often as you want, whenever you want, until you're bleeding from the eyeballs because you've been in your VR mask for so long. So that was kind of the bigger point that maybe we failed to capture.
Thank you for those excellent pitches, teams Mad Hatter and Impostable.
Great discussions, great conversations. We appreciate all the great inputs in the chat as well. These teams will stick around during the judges' deliberation if you have any additional comments, questions, or pushback. So please use the chat and the breakout.
We now invite our distinguished judges to convene in the judges' breakout room for their awards deliberation. Judges, you should see a button at the bottom of your screen to join the breakout room. While the judges deliberate, we have the distinct pleasure of welcoming Liz Garcia, an innovation strategist for Morpheus, the Vice Chief of Staff Strategic Study Group. She's here to share the description of innovation special experience identifiers and how they're linked to innovation ecosystem. She's joined by Dr. Ethan Eagle, PhD in aerospace engineering. As we know him, our Jedi Master, influencing everybody that's coming through as a coach or student of Cohort Mercury, also facilitating the workshops. As they're chatting, if you have any questions, throw them into the chat. Ethan and Liz, over to y'all.
Real quick, I forgot to announce earlier, completely my bad on that one, but if you've noticed, there's a window that popped up on your screens that says polls up top. Please use that to make your vote for the People's Choice Award. So as Liz and Ethan chat, feel free to use the chat function and to place your vote. Thanks, over to y'all.
Hey, good afternoon. Can y'all hear me? I wanted to do a quick mic check, getting thumbs up. Awesome. So as I mentioned, we were on a small little team that stood up actually as a result of a Project Mercury cohort. So the initial pitch kind of then turned us into woo. So we are a product of the amazing course that you guys have experienced. So super proud of you guys. So I got reached out to talk about the special experience identifiers that are specifically innovation focused. So SEIs have been around for quite some time. Some AFSCs use them more than others. So last year, we kind of did a quick little push of 11 different innovation SEIs. So things like there were design thinking, there were facilitation ones, there were some specific to the AI community for the AI accelerator, there were things like project manager. One of the neat things that as we kind of pushed up like rapid prototype, hey, how can we push it out, was the demand signal that resulted from people saying, hey, what are these? Like, wait, I didn't even know. Some career fields didn't even know that you could utilize them. So as a result, I kind of got linked up a little bit more with the Project Mercury cohort leads and things like that. And we kind of chatted through how we started to organize and bin some of these really bespoke experiences that we're garnering in this innovation ecosystem. One of the things that we learned was, while our introduction to design thinking was a more people focused, there are so many different types of like creative problem solving. So coming soon to really capture a lot of the experience that you've garnered during your cohort and your course is creative problem solving, but with more of a systems and complexity flavor. Because we found that there is a distinction between the design thinking that's a lot more of like the human, the feeling, the empathy. And while those are all important, they're kind of elements to a greater look at how we're problem solving. So Ethan, is there like, you want to kind of add a bit as we were kind of noodling through?
Yeah, so a couple of things that Liz and I had talked about. So there exist these 11 SEIs that already exist, and you know, it would be great if we could say go sign up right now and you can earn one. But because of some of this right sizing that's going on, really what we're excited about is there's going to be an SEI that is approved and authorized for Project Mercury graduates. And so, you know, as much as it feels good to send you all certificates and to graduate you today, the signal that you'll be able to send in the larger Air Force is obviously more systematic when you can engage in this SEI process. And so coming soon, right, in coordination with Morpheus, will be this creative problem solving in complexity and systems thinking that is the one that you should be applying for if you've been through Project Mercury cohort. And also, we have a coaching track. So John and Brent, as our MCs, right, they have been coaches with us. We're on the road with some workshops, which is an opportunity for folks to coach with us. And as you develop as a coach, if you're active on LinkedIn as like I am, I've seen a couple of our alumni posting about their senior coach status. And so elevating yourself to the level of senior coach. There will also be an SEI that is related to facilitation methods in the complexity and systems thinking space. And so those two SEIs are going to be eligible for Project Mercury graduates and our coaches as well. So I'm interested, right? This is an open forum and a little bit of some time. We're vamping a little bit while our judges are deliberating. So in the chat, or if you have questions, if you're a Mercury cohort who's about to graduate, we'd love to hear some questions for you, or just like if there's something unclear, we have Morpheus and we have Liz right here. So would love to clarify, like, hey, what should I do and how is this being used? So this is a time for you to participate as well. I see Craig.
Hey Liz, you were super helpful getting me a SEI for Scrum Master a couple of weeks ago. So thanks for that. There was a briefing that I saw you give, and with the SEIs that were listed, there was a current SEI that Project Mercury technically falls under. So should we not use Project Mercury for that SEI until the new Project Mercury in particular SEI drops?
So I would definitely say let's hold off if your only exposure within this ecosystem as far as training and project leading goes is Project Mercury, to say that one's really focused on that complexity and systems kind of thinking. The design thinking one that currently exists, that 9 India Delta, we're more than likely going to rebrand a little bit into creative problem solving, but with more of a people focus. So as you're looking at that design thinking style or human-centered design style method of problem solving. So I would say hold off right now. The other one that could be a potential is the professional innovation lead. So in addition to your experience in the cohort, if you have been within the ecosystem and you've led projects and or teams of individuals 12 months or 18 months part-time or 12 months full-time, I think that would be another one that you'd be eligible for as well. The biggest part I do want to highlight, I don't want these to turn into like Pokemon style, like let's collect them all style, but really it's how are you utilizing these opportunities, these cohorts, these programs? How are you going to capitalize on the experience and then interject that into your mission? So I think that's the biggest advantage and the leverage point that we can utilize these in is it's looking at organizations to say, can you leverage these against your unit manning document to say, like, not only do I want insert your AFSC specialty, but I also want someone with a flavor that has exposure to courses like Project Mercury.
Liz, we were chatting, and the Pokemon metaphor is evocative. I prefer, right, if we're going to go big, SEIs are more like infinity stones, right? And so if you have people, right, if you can get not just one person with the infinity gauntlet, because you're gonna totally, destroy yourself. But if you can get individuals with those different powers together, that this team building environment, and we've talked about that in Mercury a lot, right? Be who you are and do what you do. And so find that one SEI in innovation that's your vibe, and then try and get yourself surrounded by people who think a little bit differently. So I think that metaphor for me was really resonant when we had that conversation last week. So collect the infinity stones, but in different people.
Exactly.
I also see
right,
Amy.
We all know that.
Sorry, Amy in the chat is talking. If you're an officer, you can have 3 SEIs. Liz, I thought we talked about 5 being the sort of cap, and just kind of clarifying there.
Yeah, there's a database limitation currently in MilPDS that says there are 5 slots eligible in there. So you have some AFSCs that are already utilizing SEIs, and so you do have to kind of leverage that. If you already have existing ones that your AFSC naturally garners, then perhaps you might have like 3 kind of free floating slots. But currently there is a just administrative database limitation.
And is there a DoD civilian version of an SEI, or is it only for officer and enlisted?
Currently, it's only for officer enlisted, active duty, guard, reserve. We are exploring options with the civilian personnel office to see how we can find a comparable, like, knowledge, skills, and abilities, or is it like updating some job descriptions? So we are exploring that space as well. So happy to connect if you've got some ideas on how we can explore that further. Right, I'm on the active duty side, so my exposure and experience on the civilian personnel side is limited. So happy to always engage and discuss there.
Yeah, and maybe I heard a pitch earlier today about Pathfinder, and hey, maybe there's a way to get everybody to play nicely together in a common operating marketplace.
Yeah, I'm seeing the timeline question. So right now, the way the Air Force Enlisted Classification Directory and the Air Force Officer Classification Directory, those are going to be the ones that list your special experience identifiers. Those publish every 6 months. So we have not met the timeline for the fall listing. So we will be submitting for the spring submission. So it'll be April of 2023 is when we'll look at. And again, that's like the database limitation. They do batch updates for all these SEIs on a 6-month schedule. And then the SEI added to your CERF question, and forgive me if I'm kind of going out of order, so corral me. So the SEI added to your CERF, so typically your CSSs will submit what's called an Air Force Form 2096. I'll send you an email saying, hey, we certify that insert whatever SEI that you can attach to that 2096, or if your CSS would like, you would also send me an email and I can digitally sign that form. That form then gets sent to your commander support staff, your executive support staff, someone with MilPDS access. So sometimes it's your unit training manager, and then they'll update your record. That then on a 2-ish week basis also flows over to your CERF. So it's kind of like the background engineering of how those databases talk to each other.
Great. And there was a question from Stephen, could AD SEIs travel when members move to a GS?
Potentially. So that's something that we could explore. There isn't an equivalent right now that can port over easily on the civilian side, but absolutely something that we'll take into consideration when we start to stand up that civilian side is that portability factor. Because you do have a portability factor between officer and enlisted. That would be a manual process, not an automatic process, because the numbering convention for the enlisted and the officers are going to be slightly different.
Great. I'm definitely getting.
And then oh, go ahead.
No, I'm getting the know who knows vibe, and Liz knows. So that's my takeaway message for SEIs related to this is if you don't know, Liz knows, right? So there's like a ask Liz anything. I think there was an AMA maybe pretty recently about some of these things. The last question from Celeste is about the pull side, like what messaging is going out to leadership so that people know that these SEIs are available and the leaders can collect these Infinity Stones in their team members, that kind of thing. What's happening with that?
So dual purpose here, right? Like grassroots, I think our innovators or those in this kind of space have been talking through as they're establishing, because in tandem with these SEIs, we also established 9 India AFSC, for a lack of a better word. It's not exactly an AFSC, and an 88 India on the officer side of the house. So to apply some options. So a lot of people are starting to explore attaching these SEIs to those reporting identifiers and special duty identifiers. Additionally, we've pushed out through the A1 community that these exist, and we're part of a longer innovation pathway cohort that's also looking at exploring. Essentially, it's operationalizing these innovative experiences and these kind of unique individuals that we have, and how do you then leverage them across the system. We do also include these, so the Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force does push out a monthly innovation newsletter. So we did include that in that monthly newsletter when these published. We offer Ask Me Anythings on a regular, like as needed basis type of situation as well. So yeah, open to ideas if you want us to continue to push this information out. We're going to have a booth during AFA. So that'll be another avenue that we'll kind of chat through some of these things.
Great. I know, Liz, that you're also partnering or working with Daniel Holter and the work at CyberWorks on some of these things. And so, you know, if I'm throwing some spaghetti at the wall, how can people join into those kind of facilitated futuring activities if they are predisposed to thinking a little bit more open-mindedly or have this systems thinking kind of insight, but they can be the role of a catalytic outsider is often, the Stanford D School is going to bring in a dentist and a musician, but in the Air Force, right, how can we reach across the net and say, oh, you've had that experience, maybe I want to add you to my design thinking team because we're going to be able to empathize with you or talk to you, but you also have kind of these systems thinking thoughts. So I think
yes,
for everybody, if you haven't heard of Agitare and the work of Daniel Holter, I would look to that community as a way to find out more, or sort of say, raise your hand and say, hey, I have an SEI, I want to come to that water cooler. So that would be a great place for some of our alumni to start looking as well.
Yeah,
that's on the judges, but there's an interesting talking point in the chat, and I'm wondering what your perspective is on it, Liz, with leadership not buying into SEIs.
I think that you're going to have that, right? So the reality is the tyranny of now is real. And this is, the 5 feet in front of me-ness of a command tour is a reality that I think we can empathize with. I would say if you start to, you don't necessarily need them to leverage. It's also sometimes creating the value and then having them pull the demand signal that says like, hey, what makes you different? In this particular approval routing chain, you don't necessarily need your commander's signature to get the SEI awarded. Literally, we're the approval authority as the Morpheus team. So you send that over to us. So I think it's sometimes also a little bit of that. You're creating value for that commander of what are the sticky points, what are those challenges within the organization. So we often want to like get super excited about the things that we want to solve and like those kind of pain points that maybe are a 5 to 10 year project, without taking into account that a commander's tour is typically 24 months, 36 at best. So I think it's sometimes looking at how you can show value to those commanders and to your kind of leadership team in unique ways to say, hey, what made you different? And then you can start to share the story of like, well, hey, I went through this program. I learned these skills, and hey, these are all the different ways that I can apply.
Awesome.
I know that's not like necessarily the favorite answer.
Sure. Thank you so much. Really great talking points. I believe the judges are back now. And Liz, you're going to be hanging out with us, correct, for the rest of the time, answering questions in the chat? Or are you out?
I'll go off camera and I'll be on chat. I'm actually in a course right now as well. So
awesome. Alrighty, welcome back, judges. We know deliberations must have been hard. Everyone's on edge of their seats, and we're so excited to hear who won which awards. These include the Prismatic Award, the People's Choice Award based on the poll, and finally the top prize, the Innovation Excellence Award. Audience, please feel free to use your reaction buttons to show your support as winners are announced.
First up, we have the Prismatic Awards. There are 4 potential awards. These awards go to the team who most embodied the spirit of each category in the iGenome or competing values framework. Each judge was assigned a color by not so random selection process. First, Aliyah Nadeem will present the SAGE Award, representing the Innovation Genome Yellow Quadrant. This award goes to the team that best exemplified collaboration, values, and a focus on doing things that last. Aliyah, over to you.
All right, the winner is Project Carthage. Congratulations.
Next up, Colonel Toga True will present my personal favorite, obviously the best, the Artist Award, representing the Innovation Genome Green Quadrant. This award goes to the team that best exemplified creation, novelty, and a focus on doing new, often disruptive things. Colonel True.
All right, thanks. So the Artist Award, which is the one that speaks most to my heart, so I get to do it, that's awesome, is also Team Gelin with Project Carthage.
Hey, thank you. Next up, we have Rob Olson. He'll present the Engineer Award, representing the Innovation Genome Red Quadrant. This award goes to the team that exemplified control, process systems, and a focus on doing things right every time. Over to you, Rob.
That was clearly, and congratulations to Team Deuces, the meeting of the future, building on all of those existing applications and coming up with a standardized way to get more value out of meetings in the future.
Congratulations. Finally, Brigadier General Cantwell will present the Athlete Award, representing the Innovation Genome Blue Quadrant. This award goes to the team that excelled in competition, speed, and had a focus on doing things now. General.
John, that's awesome. We're going to let Dr. DeGraff do this one, and then General Cantwell is going to do the overall.
Okay, so the award goes to Team Impostable for their go fast, beat these guys, investability. You know, every other slide was about winning, fast. Certainly articulated the blue values. Congratulations to that team.
All right, well, let's cue up the Oscar music, because next is what I like to call the Hollywood Awards, or as we've referred to it, the People's Choice Award. And the winner is Team Gelin with Project Carthage. Finally, over to Brigadier General Cantwell, who will announce the Innovation Excellence Award. General Cantwell, the floor is yours.
Yeah, let me just say hats off to all the teams. We really enjoyed the conversation, and you guys really expanded all of our minds on some really thought-provoking ideas. And so thanks for putting in the time and really giving us some interesting topics to discuss. And hats off to you, to all your teammates. I mean, the talent that we brought together really is remarkable. And thank you to the judges for bringing your insights to this conversation. Dr. DeGraff, as I mentioned earlier, your dissection of that last group was absolutely spectacular, and it brings back memories. I got to tell you, from we get in our routine, in the military of getting the job done, but to hear insightful comments like that is really thought provoking. So thanks for bringing that to the conversation. But to put an end on our conversation, we have a winner, and our winner is the Mad Hatters. Congratulations.
Thank you, judges, and congratulations. Thank you for your time and commitment to these innovative ideas presented by our Project Mercury Cohort 7 teams, and congratulations to the winners. But everyone is a winner today, as it is also graduation day. The individuals on these slides have developed the culture, competency, and communities needed to help their units embrace a more innovative mindset. Individuals who completed all their course requirements will be awarded a Certified Professional Innovator Certificate from the University of Michigan's School of Engineering. Congratulations. To all of our accomplished innovators, you are now part of the Project Mercury Alumni Network. Together, we can help be the change agents our units and Department of the Air Force needs. Ethan, over to you for the coin presentation.
Thanks, John. If we were in person, it would be nice to kind of walk across the stage with all of you. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm here in person with Steven. He's just across the table from me. But I got to hear from him a little bit about some of the additional skill building that working with a totally distributed team in the 21st century, like this feels like a modern way of working. And so I have with me here the coin. I think you guys can see that if you look closely. On the front, it's the Project Mercury logo. It says Project Mercury, and there's the 4 color quadrants. And on the back is our Certified Professional Innovator, but not that CPI, with four colors and the 3 words, Creatus Novus Cognitus, create new knowledge. So really excited to be sharing these with all of the graduates. You'll get this in your graduation package along with the certificate from the University of Michigan, and maybe some other swag. If you have a water bottle, I know, or a laptop, we might send you a sticker. I've seen some folks with the military uniform camo patches as well. So we're hoping that you find a way to share your pride in being a Project Mercury graduate. So I know that what I'm supposed to do is put this into my hand and offer a handshake. Because Steven is here, I'm going to go coin him in person, and all of the rest of you can just imagine what's going on in your mind. So Steven, congratulations on all your hard work.
Thank you very much.
Super great. Everybody else, I can't wait to all meet you in person, high five, as well as share a coin with you. So did any of that show up on video? If not, can I grab the coin really quick? I'm going to steal it back from Steven. Great. So because my virtual background, there we go. So the Project Mercury coin, Project Mercury logo on the front, and there's the create new knowledge on the back. So looking forward to meeting you all in person. And I do know some of the background stories about coins. So if I see you in real life and you have your coin, I look forward to exchanging knowing glances. Back over to you, MCs.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Finally, the coaches came together to select the most valuable players for each team. These team members showed extraordinary dedication and teamwork towards driving creativity and innovation on their teams. Team 2, John Kerrigan. Are we showing 2 names? Oh, okay, those are coaches. So sorry. John Kerrigan. No, this is the wrong slide. But we're gonna get there together.
Next, we want to, I got it. Next, we want to recognize a very special group of people who are passionate about innovation and personal growth, our coaches. As these individuals volunteer to coach and continue to invest in Project Mercury, it takes a lot of ingenuity and dedication. We have a rock star lineup of coaches, and they rarely have time in their schedules allotted for innovation and coaching, but they make it happen anyway. Congratulations go out to our new coaches, John Kerrigan, Daniel Hoversbach, Al Luna, Gene Cotto, Kristen Torma, and myself. And a special thanks goes out to our multi-returning coaches, John Lee, Nadia Fisher, Aaron Cross, Amy Natalini, Dave Brewer, and my co-host, John Jenkins. Your wisdom and experience makes the magic happen. At this time, I'd like to open it up to Ethan to talk about some of the Project Mercury senior coaches.
So as some of you know, we've recently recognized 13 individuals as Project Mercury senior coaches, thanks to their contributions to our national cohorts, as well as the in-person Mercury Innovator workshops. And that's great. I hope that if you've received one of those senior coaching certificates, that you're proud of your accomplishments. In addition to that, today we're going to award 4 very special members of our community a master coaching certification. So this is the next level above a senior coach. And a master coach hasn't just participated in innovation, hasn't just led a cohort. They've taken their own shots on goal and improved this community and their Air Force communities in an impactful and meaningful way. So 4 individuals: Julie Pistol Jansen, Johnny Barnes, Dave Brewer, and Aaron Cross. Julie is a sought-after innovation facilitator all by herself, and is running Lego Serious Play and all kinds of good trouble that Pistol gets up to. I think you can see where she gets her call sign if you know her well. Not only here in the US as a Mercury Innovator Workshop coach with us in the inaugural workshop at Nellis, but also hosted us at Ramstein Air Force Base while we were in Germany just last month. Colonel Johnny Barnes, man, you hear his and see his influence all over the Air Force. The man is a force of nature. He's making really an impact at the headquarters Air Force and is a tireless advocate for innovation. He brings a ton of yellow collaborative energy. The man knows every piece of every part of the innovation pie. And has been really a road warrior at Spark Cells, at the Spark Summit. He was at the AFWorks Fellows, always talking about the value of leveraging the iGenome and the competing values framework. Dave Brewer is a pivotal part of the Mercury principles, transitioning into the Guard and Reserve and through state partnerships. A sister project of Mercury called Aim High that was also launched similar to Morpheus. Has been making a lot of inroads into bringing innovation leadership to the Guard and Reserve, and Dave is a huge piece of that. And finally, Aaron Cross. Aaron is a dedicated coach, and he's been a mentor coach for this cohort. You heard and saw his influence. He's also integrated Project Mercury into some of USAFA's innovation courses, and actually the Certified Professional Innovator is now not that I love requirements, but it's become a requirement to teach the innovation principles at USAFA. So understanding and certifying what is the mindset and systems thinking that we need, and how that can be transferred into teaching cadets innovation principles and really helping to change the airman mindset for future leaders in a whole new generation of USAFA graduates. So first of all, from me to all of these folks, you're dear and delightful friends. And it's a welcome honor and really humbling for me to be able to honor you because all of the work that you've done really just makes me smile, and I'm really grateful. So thanks to everybody else, and I'll flip it back over to John.
Now it's time for the most valuable players. Team MVPs. For team, can we go ahead and put the names on screen, please? Team 2, Aaron Finley. Team 3, Bonnie Rushing. Team 4, Zach Michaels. Team 5, Joe Stallings. Congratulations. Oh, and Team 6, Moose. Congratulations.
As we wrap up this cohort, I want to give you a quick update on what's been happening with Project Mercury and what's coming up next. Project Mercury has been hitting the road over the past 6 months, as Ethan described. He's out there at Little Rock now. Essentially, we're doing Project Mercury innovation workshops. We've been charged to accelerate change, and the framework utilized in the Project Mercury innovation workshops gives the airmen a foundation to get after that call. These workshops consist of 3-day seminars designed to teach basic innovation practices and to help build local innovators at installations across the Air Force. We're conducting our 10th workshop now, and it has impacted over 500 airmen and guardians. As a result, more will be impacted throughout their units. We're taking requests for this upcoming fall, so if you'd like to get in on the project workshops, feel free to hit us up on our LinkedIn page at Project Mercury Innovators Forum, or you can respond in the chat right now. And if this have colleagues looking for the full experience, Cohort 8 application window is open till the 1st of September. So please have them volunteer and get those applications in as we solidify the nominees for that cohort.
At this time, I'd like to bring back and present our host and the commander of the Holmes Center at the Air University, Brigadier General Cantwell, for closing comments.
Hey, fantastic. Thank you so much. I do want to say, team, fantastic work by everyone involved. I want to say special thanks to our head coach, Dr. Eagle. Hey, thanks for your words. Thanks for your leadership to allow us to elevate this conversation and get these airmen and guardians some skills that are really going to let us execute what the chief wants to go out there and do. So thanks for doing that. And to everyone that's graduating and that got to participate in this really special event, I've got some marching orders off to you for you, and that would be to go out there and share your experience, share it with your airmen, share it with your coworkers. You may not realize it, but you have gained skills that most airmen just don't have. Airmen have heard about innovating, and they've discussed it in the workplace, but you guys got to dedicate some time towards this, and really you now have some experiences that others just don't have. And so continue your conversation. This is an ongoing thing. This is a skill set that we all have to work on, because I think we can all safely say that in the normal Air Force workplace, it's just not something that we're really focused on. So to have the chance to do this, I think is really special. And so congratulations to you all. I encourage you all to continue to stay engaged with Project Mercury. If you get the chance, come back and be a coach and help that next project. Because I can tell you, just being a part of the conversation certainly helped elevate my understanding, and I hope that it'll help me back here at the Home Center. So again, thank you for everyone for what you did during this event, and I look forward to remaining engaged. Thanks so much.
Thank you, General Cantwell. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our showcase. Thank you to our esteemed hosts, judges, friends at MGM Works, coaches, students, and to all their supporters. We'll leave the breakout rooms open for 30 minutes for an informal Q&A sessions. Please feel free to jump in.